So here's a question for you to ponder. Is escapism an inherently bad and hypocritical thing? Should the media we consume take the responsibility for providing a viable alternative to interacting with society at large, producing a large amount of shut-ins, when with its very next action it goes ta-da! And introduces to you even more content to consume? Do video games, and by extension anime and movies, provide a safe outlet for the larger audience to relax and to vent their frustrations, pacifying humanity and stunting our growth as a society? Is the inherent power fantasy of the isekai genre cheapens when the viewer is faced with the broken and decrepit world outside? Is there a point for media to even have any sort of moral or political message in it beyond the surface ideas implied by their chosen genre? Sorry, is this getting too contemplative early on? Here are some turkey noises. In the Land of Leadale is a 12-episode anime series whose plot can be roughly described as what if Overlord was noble bright instead of grim dark, which to people unfamiliar with anime may sound like an interesting premise. The problem with such line of thinking is that for it to be true, you have to ignore pretty much every other isekai anime with the slow life aesthetic. So once upon a time there was a game called Leadale, which was a virtual reality MMO sandbox game which in the story serves as a vague explanation of why there are game mechanics in this anime. It's weird how the Japanese idea of a perfect MMO game seems to be the sort of mix of Minecraft, Final Fantasy, and any old school RPG there ever was, so the game always needs to be a fantasy game with many racial options, base building, AI factions constantly interacting with each other outside of player influence, and a very liberal customization system, but also not too hard in the interface that people can actually use it well. But I digress. So in this game there was a bedridden girl and an avid player of this game named Keina Kagami, who died in a hospital during her gaming session, and thus her consciousness is uploaded into the game world in her own high elven avatar Keina, and she ventures forth to find other players like her. So already the show is leagues better than most other isekais, and that the isekai part is actually important to the story. And it was especially smart for the author to make the Japanese isekai a person who'd actually enjoy the ability to move their body freely, a privilege that you able-bodied people always take for granted because you're not just trapped inside your head and can use your arms properly. Wait a second. I don't want to spoil much because my tarot cards tell me I'm going to recommend this anime, but a turning point for me was a very simple one, where Kayla wants to meet her children, aka the NPCs she created in the game, and not only they are happy to see her, but one of them is also of a different race to her, and the first thing I thought of when seeing this was, boy, the gossip about her sex life must be wild in this world. It must be nice to be granted a life where you have a loving family that is always there to support you and love you without all the downsides of having a family, such as having to act as their free labor, listening to their weird ramblings on family dinners, and then having to watch in glee as life slowly leaves their pathetic, rotten bodies as you... Alright, pardon me if I'm not feeling very in the mood to talk about a gleeful, cheery anime about a good and calm life. Overall, the anime in itself isn't much to write home about. It's about the same as that anime about an immortal witch that max leveled by killing slimes for 300 years, and I'm sure that there will be more similar stories in the future, whose whole selling point is to be a relaxing wish fulfillment of a stable, unchangeable, predictable, slow life. But where it stands out, at least to me, is that unlike many other protagonists, you do feel that Kayla deserves this life, both in the sense of her real life and in the sense that she has grinded the shit out of the game and all the items and skills she uses are earned. So I'd still recommend it, The Land of Leadale, for being a nice little story where everything feels nice enough for you to relax, but not nice enough for it to turn into white noise. And this kinda makes me think about things. In a world that has been in a steady decline since 1920s, you also remember two important things about the mass media. One, that it feeds on the fears and wants of the masses, and two, that the nature of this feeding is cyclical. For every Simpsons, there will eventually be South Park. For every story that glorifies something, we will soon get a similar story where that something is smeared in a thin layer of barf and feces. And if just 6 years ago people wanted to see larger-than-life heroes battling villains, what we'll probably have now is the return of the feel-good stories, meeting societal demand. Perhaps this is an inevitable part of growing up. As our childish fantasies are torn from us, we try our hardest to escape this reality instead of confronting consequences in an unfair, uncaring, and unavoidable world of hatred, misery, and death.